7:30, I'm calling to order this public hearing of the City Council of the City of Bandera. It's Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, and we're at City Hall at 511 Main Street. All council members present with the exception of Christine Morse. Our city secretary is present. And item 2, discussion of possible action on the following item. The City Council will hold a public hearing regarding the adoption of local amendments to technical codes adopted by the city for the regulation of construction and maintenance of residential and commercial structures. So currently, the city is operating under the 2003 International Building Code. You want to borrow one of mine?
Yeah.
These codes, well, Bureau Veritas, for one, they can't enforce the 2003 codes as far as building codes. There's no copy of it anywhere, there's no way to do it. So we're proposing adopting the 2018 codes. Talking to Bureau Veritas, there's really no large major changes in the few codes, but there are things like something that COVID brought in was water fountains and different things like that. What we're discussing tonight are local amendments. And this stack of local amendments, and I will be honest with you, I have not read every single word of that. But it does maintain the Board of Appeals so that should there be a construction issue, for instance, an individual didn't want to use a certain type of pipe, let's say. Well, then that individual would have the opportunity to come before the Board of Appeals, which the council sits as Board of Appeals, and plead their case, and council can say yes or no or whatever. And then as things come up on a one-on-one basis, these different things in this IBC, which is about 2,000 pages, can be considered and see if it fits Bandera. And that's the whole point in local amendments. And that's what we're discussing tonight. Rebecca.
I just want to point out too that while the building codes are 2003, and the residential code 2003, the electrical code 99, plumbing code 99, mechanical code 97.
Yeah. 87 for some of them, I think.
Wow, I don't see any 87s, but definitely
Needs to be updated.
yeah.
But tonight is an opportunity for us to get input. There won't be a vote on the adoption until April the 19th at that meeting. Ma'am.
Also, the city administrator worked with industry professionals for the recommended amendments, local amendments, and some of them are required by law because these are international building codes, right? So there were pieces that needed to come out in order to comply with state law. And so we had this on our agenda last meeting to adopt, and I think you asked for a public hearing, right? So
I do.
oh, you did, okay, sorry. So I didn't know if there were specific industries or folks that you had asked to come to provide public input, but.
I did post it in the newspaper as well.
I believe that we were given the example last time, and some of you weren't here, that a contractor went out to find a particular kind of wire that the 2003 code called for, that required, that cost him quite a bit of money because it was hard to get. So it's
Because it's not up with technology
It
or
just got to-
industry
yeah.
standards.
and so that's the whole point in adopting new codes. Any comment from anybody? Any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Is Veritas the one we will still be using?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, they are our building inspector.
I know.
And I believe that the one thing this does not address is the fire code, because at the time we began to delve into this, and not the amendments, but the adoption of the new codes, the then city administrator, having such experience in that field, was going to help us with the fire code, but right now, Bureau Veritas offers the fire inspections and the fire code enforcement capabilities. Yes, ma'am.
Does this mean that anybody that's already built, or, I'm not talking like housing, are we? Or will it will,
It's residential and commercial.
okay, so they're not gonna have to upgrade to
No,
some
ma'am.
of this? Only if they were to add on or do some, okay, that's what I need to know.
The bottom line in residential and commercial, in the add-on or the demolition and build back, if the add-on or the build back is more than 50% of the existing building, then code becomes involved in the entire building. Otherwise, code is only involved in what you, yes, Rebecca?
As far as our fire code goes, we're under 1997. And we had an issue with this in the past because Bureau Veritas won't even inspect to 1997. But according to local ordinance, that's what we're requiring people to build to. So I see that as a potential issue and that we need to figure out what we're doing with the fire code.
I agree.
So it's everything but fire?
This is my understanding, I believe that Dan's, what, ma'am?
Dan sent the amendments to include the, I don't wanna say lowest, but the minimum fire code that it needed to be with these amendments that are here tonight. And then more amendments can be made to that.
Okay.
So you're saying we are updating the fire code
Yes.
to 2018?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that was part of the motion.
Okay, good, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
totally misunderstood that.
It's okay, that all just kinda happened since after the meeting. And then we started looking at it and he got some amendments from a similar city and
Okay, thank you,
That was part of
Jill,
the motion.
and Rebecca for bringing it up.
I think it was too.
Yes,
It,
sir.
it's not just the international building codes, correct?
No, it's
It's
the
the
electrical code, the
IPC,
mechanical
the
code.
IEC, everything.
All of it's annexes. Well, I guess they're called annexes, what are they called? Anyway,
Addendums,
appendixes,
appendixes.
appendices. Got it.
Look at you.
I know, I'm wearing my smart glasses today.
I have mine on my head, so it doesn't count.
Comments from the public, questions? We'll give it a couple more minutes and then I'll adjourn this meeting in case anybody decides to wander in. Yes,
So this
Bill.
means that you all have not actually adopted it yet, or you will adopt it?
We will adopt it, this is a public hearing to get the public input prior to the adoption.
Okay.
So it will be on the agenda for April the 19th to be
Okay.
adopted.
And this is the second public hearing. We did have one a year ago when this was first, the amendments were first brought to light as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I went back and checked.
Yeah, and that's why I asked for another one, because it had been so long ago,
Right.
so.
Did
Okay.
somebody just come in, Will?
They left.
Just a couple came in, but I think they thought they were somewhere else. and
Oh, okay.
they-
I just wanted to make sure they would go like that way to, and we're here to speak.
They thought it was a bar.
I'm going to ask Will from a code enforcement. Will, from a code enforcement standpoint, is there any explanations or added information that you would like to share about these local amendments?
Not that I hadn't already, I mean, I'm certainly look forward to getting out of the dark ages, and I think there's been a lot of anxiety about this, but I think overall it will be positive. I mean, it's bad, and I haven't really expressed it, but we have contractors that are new that call and ask, you know, when they're curious about work, and they call and ask, well, what building code are y'all working out of? And when Earl tells them the 2003, many of them actually laugh at him, and I don't know if y'all fully understand, you know, it's very challenging, and I think this will be a very positive step, and it still leaves the wiggle room that if it is something that it's not reasonable or not a fit for Bandera, that it can be appealed, it can come before council in the form of the Board of Adjustments and be worked out and resolved in an amicable fashion where it's not unreasonable.
And sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Rebecca first.
I just wanted to mention, to my understanding, having the 2003 codes never prevented anybody to building to a higher standard code.
No.
Right.
But I always like to use that example that the electrician that the previous code enforcer had used, that it had actually, it caused prices to actually be higher due to the confusion, which is, I never thought that would actually be a problem, so I was a little stunned to hear that he, that one of them, because he thought he had to do something he didn't have to do, he was actually using materials that weren't required and charging people more, and of course, he wasn't making more money because he was using materials that were more expensive and harder to get because he thought he had to. And this will be easier for, it's something they're more from everybody's familiar with, as opposed to having to look and search and try to find or ask somebody else, and maybe they're getting the correct information and maybe they're not, and I think it'll just be much more standardized and better, and I really don't think we'll have any problems. And if we do, we'll all work together to get through them.
Tony?
So, I guess it didn't prevent people from building to a higher standard unless it was a conflict, and then it probably caused the confusion then. But, the reason I had my hand up originally was in regards to coming to council if they find something that doesn't apply to Bandera. There's a cost involved in that. So, is to come to the Board of Adjustments and get that adjusted. And then ultimately, if our goal would be to update the code to make it a local amendment so that nobody else in the future, then they would be doing us a favor. And I think we should probably waive their fee if ultimately that is determined that way, because it costs them something to file for a Board of Adjustments, to applications for a Board of Adjustments. And so if it's our lack of due diligence because our lack of knowledge in their field that we didn't apply a local code and we agree, I think we should consider that.
Refund it is the Board of Appeals, but when it comes to this stuff, there's the Board of Appeals and the Board of Adjustment. But anyway,
Okay. I always feel
so you're
confused.
suggesting the Board of Appeals refund the fee should the Board of Appeals find in favor?
Right. I
of
mean,
the
that would be my
individual?
thought process behind it, would because then,
Well, we can go to that when we get there.
right.
Rebecca?
I'm inspired by Tony's comment to suggest maybe a step one would be for the individual to propose an amendment, as opposed to applying for a variance, because it saves that whole process, and we can review and talk to consult with industry professionals to see if that's an appropriate amendment.
Right, because did they ever give any of the locals that Jimmy had talked to, or previous admin, did they give us a list of stuff that they recommended as a local amendment once we adopted these? I thought we had a list of that.
Jimmy had that in the beginning, and then I think David had talked to some contractors and showed them these local amendments that Dan had already prepared that were
Right.
from another city, and they didn't have any issues as far as I know with any of it.
So on April 19th, we would be considering those along with this adoption, or are we
Right.
going to do that at a separate?
No, that's all.
They're
all
in
one.
here.
They're in there, yeah.
Okay, they're all in this. Okay, great.
It'll be the 2018 codes, and then those are the amendments to the code. So it's like an all of,
Local, yeah.
So we'll be adopting 2018 with the amendments.
Okay, further discussion, council? Comment? Anybody out there have a comment? Anything they want to say? All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Rebecca. Second, Jerry. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. 5:45.